Hello, welcome to the Superteam podcast. Today is a very special episode, probably our biggest episode yet. But today we have two very, very important people. You might have heard of this little exchange called FTX. It's a small one. Nobody's really heard of it.
A tiny
Only
island.
million, a tiny island. We have the founder of FTX. Sam is here. Hey, Sam. And of course, we have the head of FTX India, Aravind. Hi, Aravind. Guys, welcome to the podcast. How are you guys doing today?
Thanks for having us. I'm doing great.
Hey guys.
So Sam, we were going to start off by asking you questions about, FTX's plan for the future, your vision for the crypto industry, regulations. Then the bloody guys at Bankless asked you those questions so that you trash all of ours. So we've decided to take a different route. We're going to show you a presentation and ask you questions based on that. All right? Akshay?
And we're going
are
to
we up
link
for
to the
this game?
wonderful interview with the Bankless guys. That's a much more legitimate interview. I have no idea why Sam agreed to do this, but since he has, you should first watch the Bankless one and then continue with the rest of this. And with that, Sam, you ready to react to some photographs you've never seen before?
Yeah, let's do it.
And with that, Sam, the first question we can't ignore right off the bat. Obviously, you're a billionaire. And
Oh boy.
we've always wanted to know what it's like when someone becomes a billionaire. Is there like a secret club? And when you talk to other billionaires, are they really interesting people or are they boring because they're, what do you guys talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a club, but it's Twitter, so it's not very secret. It's sort of public. What do we talk about? It's like mostly it's just exactly the same. I think as before. With maybe just a little bit more chatter about exactly how wild the last few years have been for the world.
And the
Who's
friends in the suit. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got on the right there, that's Kevin O'Leary. We've got the mooch there, Scaramucci. On the other side, and then I think that might be Steve Cohen next to Scaramucci there.
Okay, who was the most fun at this table?
It's definitely Scaramucci. So he organized the dinner. This is at Salt in New York last year, and he's a great guy. He's a gregarious guy also, and he was had definitely been warming up for this dinner for a while. So it was really fun.
So Sam, I have another follow-up question about this dinner. Which one of the billionaires offers to pay? Like, what is that moment like when someone's like, "I got the bill today"?
So, I mean, on this one in particular, it was actually not at a restaurant. It was at like a hotel room, and I don't know, Scaramucci had prearranged it, so there wasn't sort of like that particular discussion in this case. But I guess more generally, like it's actually like exactly the same as normal. Like it's sort of like the chuckle comes. Sometimes someone's like gone to talk to the waiter before to try and pay for it before anyone else can get a chance to. Other ones will just sort of split it 50-50.
And when you have dinners with millionaires, do you offer to pay? Being like, listen, I got this one. You're a couple of zeros less than me.
Yeah, so I'll say I was getting dinner with an employee, Romnick, who's been leading a bunch of initiatives for us a couple months ago. And I offered, it's like, oh no, Sam, don't worry, I got this one. Don't worry about it. And he pulls out a company card and pays with it.
That's the power move. I love it. Romnick. All right, let's talk about product actually. Okay. You guys launched an NFT platform. We're very excited about that because it's one of the few centralized exchanges to have done this. We scoured the platform to pick up some of the most cutting edge NFTs and artwork on it. And
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you explain, please?
Yeah. Oh boy. That's a blast from the past. Yeah, that's it. Oh boy. I mean, yeah. So the lunch thing that was that was one of the promotions we did early when we launched the platform. It was sort of one of the things that you could bid on there, and
was it
yeah,
fun?
boy,
Did
I
you have
haven't
fun
thought
doing
about those
that?
in a while. So the launch hasn't actually happened yet. Interestingly,
Ah.
I think there's like a like failure of coordination on exactly when it would launch, and I think that part is still pending.
Okay,
Ah,
fair enough.
okay.
And the one on the left, like that's got to be a collectible, right? Like the FTX condoms.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those are, I mean, you got to pay top price if you want sort of like an original mint,
Wow.
one of those.
And if you get both, does the lunch change into like, is there a package thing?
I mean, not that I'm aware of, but
Okay,
I
fair
mean,
enough.
I can't speak to what my team's been arranging, right?
All right. Let's see. We've got, this is honestly, this is actually a serious question because we were like, you launched the white label product. We were very excited about
Yeah.
that. We don't know the code.
Yeah. But this product seems so exciting, but it felt like it didn't get enough press. So I feel like this is why this is in there.
Yeah.
Because you want to talk about it. When we saw this, we thought, hey, here's a fun idea. What if we launch a Superteam exchange and then you can customize it for whatever we want it to be, right? So we were like, okay, if someone goes to buy Shiba Inu, the button just won't work or the button just keeps moving. Someone wants to buy Doge or Shiba Inu. Sam, can you talk a little bit about this product? What was the thinking behind this?
The context behind it is just that like we built an exchange, and the way that our exchange works is effectively we built a back-end service, and then we built an API on it, and then we built a website, and the website just like calls our own API. And that means that it's really easy for us to then give access to, I mean, we automatically already give access to the API for sort of like other users of the platform. But it means that it's if someone else wants to build on it, in theory, they can just draw on the same exact underlying resources that we built. And so, our white label product is sort of a formalization of that, where where we just actually go out and say, yeah, like here's a white label product. It sort of like specifies all of the API calls that one would need to build, an exchange on our backend. And then you can customize it. You can put it in whatever interface you want, whatever context you want. And I agree. I think it's super exciting. And
Sam, when you made this, was there a particular use case that you thought was exciting? Like when you thought of this, was there one example that leapt up and that said that, hey, this is who would use this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that like an obvious answer is, let's say that you're a fintech application, but you don't have crypto, right? You have some combination of, I don't know, neobanking or stock investing or payments or something like that. You already have users, you already have funds coming, in and out of the platform. People are using you for some amount of finances. You don't currently have a way for people to invest in crypto using it, but probably it's one of your more demanded features. This makes it super easy to build that in. And so I think that's been like the most the most demanded and most used case for it.
It feels like I'm going back to the NFT marketplace, and now I see this feature. Kind of like on the NFT marketplace, there's now tickets and there's luxury goods, and it opens up the potential to do so much more.
Yeah. By the way, FTX is the only company, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's I'm surprised that there have been more that have sort of like replicated some of this, but yeah.
It feels like you're going for a super app, Sam. Is that the vision behind it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I think that is a lot of what we're looking for here. And, obviously we'll see where this ends up in the end. Like, there haven't been nearly as many kind of successful super apps as I was expecting there to be. But I still feel like it's got to be big. Like there's just enormous amounts of potential for them. Because, once you already have some services, in one of them, it just makes it really easy to sort of like, bundle more, and it's sort of straightforward. And so I do definitely expect, that to become more prominent over time. I guess we're just not fully there yet, but in the United States, obviously there are countries where you are.
Yeah, exactly. And in our part of the world, Grab is a super app.
Paytm is a super app in India.
And you can expect, therefore, your white label product to go really far in the region, because you can have somebody who has like a on-demand laundry delivery, and they might choose to open up a crypto exchange within the app because it continues to engage users and bring in increase the average revenue per user. So,
absolutely. I completely agree. And I think things like that are things that like people should be thinking of doing a lot more. Just like saying, yeah, look, my product isn't currently like a crypto app. Maybe that's not what I was anticipating it to be, but actually it makes a ton of sense. I do think that we're probably going to see more and more people over time, think about doing something like that.
Akshay, I was when I heard of this, I sent it to about two founders in fintech startups that I'm an angel in, and they were discussing with me saying, okay, we obviously have to do crypto at some point, and they were thinking about acquiring or buying one of the smaller crypto startups, saying, okay, we need a team to build this and we need to buy expertise. And then I send them this link, and they were like, thanks for saving us a couple of $1 million, buddy. Thanks, we'll just figure this out by ourselves now.
I mean, hopefully, I think it's a really compelling alternative, as you said, to having to build or acquire all of the expertise in house. And I think more generally, like, I'm always skeptical when a company acquires with acqui-hire type models. It's not that it can't work, like it absolutely could work, but like ask yourself, like, are you acquiring the best team or one of the best teams for this thing? Like, if so, why were they trying to sell to you? And how is that going to integrate with your company? Like, are you ready to be running that business? Like, it's a lot messier, I think, than like people sometimes make it out to be. It doesn't mean it can't be the right answer, but I do think that that just means like, I don't think it's like automatically what you should be thinking of doing.
Your management. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
So we try to pull up the org chart. We're really curious about the management style, and here's why. Because you guys have moved so fast. You're launching so many countries, so many products. You'll have trading desk. You have like a venture capital fund. And so we were like, how are you guys doing all of this with two engineers? And I don't know if you have more people in the office, how many? What is the latest count on the, because it's 6 engineers, right? Did I get the number right at FTX?
It's, I think we're probably up to like 10, 10
Okay,
to 20, depending on how you count. But it was for a first year of operation, it was 2.
Okay,
we hired our third developer about a year in.
Okay, cool. So we were like really interested in knowing how you're able to move so fast and still grow so big. And so we pulled up your org chart from 2 places. Both of them may be wrong. The one on the right is probably outdated, but the one on the left was a paid service. We really don't have much money here, so you can't see the rest of the names there. But we're hoping you can help us complete this and tell us how this works.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually sort of a game show type thing. It sort of rotates every week. We do, it's sort of like a chief of staff for the week type thing. So it could be anyone. No. I think the real answer here is that it's a little all over the place. And in particular, we try to have a fairly flat management style. We try to be in a position where people feel empowered to do to do the right thing, whatever that is, rather than having to feel there's 17 layers of bureaucracy sitting between them and where they're trying to go. And so what that means is that, we obviously do have to have some structure in here. Like, I'm not saying that it's, all just sort of complete chaos, but we do try and make it at least a little bit chaotic. At least a little bit of, we want people to be able to act, mostly independently, to run things by us whenever they need advice, whenever they need, whenever they feel like they don't know what the right thing to do is, without feeling like the whole company is just blocked on, on sort of like us dictating what's going to happen next or anything like that. So, it's more generally, we really try and think of titles as something that they're there if they help. Like, they're not meant to be there because you need a title for everything. They're meant to be there just to the extent that they help the company function better. And then if they're making the company function worse, then we should change what's happening, because there's no point in sort of like artificially dictating governance with immutable words.
Is there a are there things that come to you that shouldn't as a result of this, and things that continue to come to you that you want them to come to you because you want the company to feel small? Can you identify maybe 2 in each category?
Yeah, there definitely are some of each, but I think what I'd say more strongly here, which is something that I really do believe in, I generally try hard not to be mad that things come to me. I would way rather that something come to me when someone's unsure than that it not come to me, they remain unsure, and the wrong decision get made. Like, I just feel completely unambiguous between those 2 potential outcomes about what I would want to happen. Do what you think is right. I don't have any real thoughts on this. I trust you. I say that a lot. And that's totally fine. But you know, it means that people are unsure. I always am happy to take a look and you know, give my thoughts on it. And you know, in terms of things not coming to me, I want people to feel empowered to not have to, you know, if they feel like they're confident what needs to happen somewhere. But there are a lot of times that you know, something will not come to me, and I'll say, look, I know that you're trying to, like, you know, basically, like, you know, respect my time here, and you know, I sort of like am grateful for that. But like, you know, really, this was an important thing. Like, you know, you wanted feedback on it. I was happy to give it. Like, you should have just talked to me about it, and we could have like cleared this up a lot more easily.
Sam also wrote like a very nice company document which said the same thing as well, where he said that if you have any decision and you're unsure, you can feel free to come to me. And I think after that, like a lot of people, including me, have abusing that a lot. So I think
Yeah.
we're pretty aware of this.
Excellent.
So the guy on the left and the guy on the right, they have a conflict within the organization. One is a 21-year-old
Yep.
engineer, or you know, someone who's, you know, just an absolute maverick. He's a prodigy. And the guy on the right is a very senior hire. They have a conflict. How do you resolve this?
You know, the real answer here, in the end, and this is something that I kind of like feel very strongly about, is that I want to hear what happened, and I want to dig into it myself, and try and figure out what's actually going on, what the actual right answer is. Like, you can talk about like the social dynamics, right? You can talk about what role each person played in it. You can talk about how they talk about it. But in the end, so much of this comes down to what is the actually right decision to make. And so many things just look different. Like, when you change that, you know, everything, when viewed in a different light, takes on a different character. And someone could look arrogant or like they're kind of, you know, responsible, depending on whether they were right or wrong. And so rather than thinking about it in terms of the roles or in terms of the dynamics, you know, I just say, let's talk about the object level issue here. Let's try and remove, you know, drain the emotion out of the conversation, right? Drain the conflict out, the roles out. I don't care who's saying what. Like, let's just talk about the decision we have to make, and try and figure out what the right decision to make is. And then if there's like still personal conflict, we can like trickle that back up and talk to people about, like, you know, why they're feeling frustrated. But it's just so hard to address the meta level question of frustration without having first addressed the object level question of what the actual like disagreement was about in the first place.
I actually had something on this, Akshay. You know, you know, I've worked with a couple of crypto firms in India, and often what happens in this space, right? Because it's so new and everyone's moving so quickly. I wanted to ask, how does the, you know, legal and policy departments, how do they keep up with the success of the company? Because oftentimes you got to do something that could be, you know, a bit of a gray area. You don't know whether this is okay or no. You know, how do you deal with legal and policy keeping up with you know, a new technology like this?
And saying yes when their job is often to say no.
No, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a good question. And, you know, I mean, a lot of these, like, look, in a lot of countries, they're still trying to figure out what the regulations are around cryptocurrencies, right? So you can be like, what does the law say? And they're like, well, they're planning to I'll get back to you in 2024, you know? And so obviously you need to pay close attention to the law. I'm not saying you ignore it, but it does mean that, like, you know, you also have to be cognizant of the fact that, like, sometimes the answer is not going to be clear. And you have to deal with that. And you know, I think that our answer there is, you know, we don't view it as like we have the legal team and they give legal rulings down from on high. And then we have the business team and they give business opinions from on high. And then they all meet in a shadowy room and sort of like, you know, come to blows on this. Like, we all try and have all perspectives as things that we care about, right? And then it's just a question of, how do they balance out in this particular case? Like, what in you know, right now is the right thing to do? And that's really, you know, the goal, in trying to understand both sides of it, right? And so, like, when we ask legal, like, hey, we're thinking about like putting pictures of chapstick on the NFT platform, like, is that okay, right? And they're going to come back and say, like, we're not sure, right? And then the chapstick won't get there. And, like, actually what should have happened, you'd be like, all right, talk to me about, like, the context behind this. And they'll be like, we're pretty sure it's okay, but like we're confused about why you asked. And so maybe there's something we're missing, but like what the fuck? Right? And we're like, no, there's nothing you missing. Like I was just fucking with you. Right? And okay, that's a dumb example, right? But like more generally, right? Like if we can understand the context behind things, often we feel like, oh wait, like I see, we're just thinking about this wrong. Like we're just not talking about the important factors here.
All right, Sam and Aravind, we were trying to look for how you guys work together in the culture at the office. We found this video, so let's watch this.
Are you guys playing a Blitz game?
As a game of Bug House. So that's
Bug House.
Yeah. So it's a many versus many chess variant. In that case, I think we had 6 boards, maybe 5 or 6 boards there, and we had 5 or so people, 4 or 5 people on each team.
Sam, what is your rapid rating in chess?
Oh, probably not very good. I haven't had a rating for a while, but I think I'm probably I've never actually had like a blitz rating in particular, so I don't really know. Given how much Bug House I've played, it's surprising how little chess I've played.
Why is there's a crypto and chess, like some sort of brotherhood there, right? Like poker, chess, crypto.
Yeah.
What is that about?
I mean, I think there's probably some similarities. People who like games certainly like a piece of it, although that can't be all of it. I don't know. I think they're both sort of like, tech heavy, sort of like quantitative thinking heavy.
Risk management.
I don't know. I'm sort of making it up, but yeah.
Sam, we're going to get to India, but before that, we wanted to ask you, right? So obviously now you kind of wear like these two hats. On one hand, there's like this just chaotic, decentralized crypto universe. On the other hand, there's like the more traditional finance and just tech and leadership required. How do you kind of balance these two? Do you sometimes worry that to successfully financialize a Web2 company, you need to have there's a lot of founder lore that is required, so you kind of have to do it. But at the same time, you're also part of an industry where there's decentralization is core to the ethos. How do you balance that, and how do you think about your own role?
It's a good question. I do think it's a real difficulty of trying to simultaneously sort of be able to appeal in Web 2 and Web 3, and I think it's it's important, it's crucial to our company that we are able to, because in everything from sort of the just the regulatory implications and policy implications of it's in the end, I think that there are some common elements, though, and I think that sometimes these common elements don't get as much press as the differences do, but I think they're absolutely there. And I think in particular, like the I guess I find that like one core thing that I think both appreciate much more so than is usually acknowledged is sort of just like authenticity and honesty. I think that's something that you don't maybe think that's what would be helpful in like a sort of like more proper environment.
With that, let's talk about FTX India. So we found this on one of the popular blogs called The Generalist. We see that India, without you all having been here, is already 6.3% of the user base. Is this accurate? How do you guys think about it? Is that why you decided to launch?
Yeah, it sounds about correct to me. I don't know exactly what fraction is, but that's probably about right. And I think like as that implies, it is a big demographic for us. It's a place with a ton of users, and it's also very tech heavy. And there's a lot of I think demographically it makes a ton of sense. It's a massively growing economy, but I don't know.
One of the things that I've seen on Indian Twitter is that India is often becomes the DAO capital for a lot of tech companies, because of we have 1 billion users, potential users, but a lot of them, they come to India and they realize that this is a DAU country, but maybe not necessarily an ARPU country.
Yep.
Once you get here, a lot of them realize, as Reed Hastings very recently on Netflix's call, he spoke about this extensively, saying, okay, we've been trying to figure India out, but we've been struggling for a bit. Is that something that you've been cognizant about?
Oh, absolutely. And if you look at just like, I think GDP is a pretty good proxy for this, right? Like, you know, it's a Dow country, maybe it's not an ARPU country. Like, how do those balance out? I mean, you know, I think you just look at like, well, what's GDP by country, right? And I think that gives you, frankly, a pretty decent proxy.
All right, Sam, you know what we're also announcing today?
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's today.
Thank you guys for making this one of the most fun partnership experiences we have had, where we proposed an idea, we're thinking of what to do, and I think we came up with something that is, in our opinion, going to be super valuable for the builders and developers. We're calling it the FTX Superteam, and we have it's an open call for developers building to begin with on the Solana blockchain, where anybody can apply to get funded by FTX and then get access to the Superteam community to get their project off the ground. You want to talk about maybe plans for FTX Ventures and how you think about this regionally, Sam?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been growing out our ventures quite a bit over the last couple of years. And, I think that it's been an amazing last few years for investing in general. But, beyond just the general climate, I think what we found is that like finding really great teams and backing them early is just what is by far the most impactful thing you can do. And really, helping to get them started up in a way that they might not be if you sort of didn't do it. And I think India is a really exciting place for that. I think that if, even putting aside, I know we talked about sort of the economic piece of like Indian users, but there's another piece of this, right, which is Indian IP, which is Indian, work and labor and ideas and creations. And I think on that front, right, it wouldn't shock me if it ended up being one of the top countries, if not the top country in the world, in terms of how much it ended up sort of contributing to to crypto, to the crypto ecosystem. I think especially putting all of that together, being able to provide funding for new projects in India who are working in great ecosystems is something that we're just extremely excited about.
This is the first time I've felt pressure on behalf of the country, because I've heard this from a lot of the crypto folks saying we're all looking at India. We saw Polygon and we're like, there's probably 5 more of Polygons out here. So let's get it going.
We're expecting 3 by 2024. So
the really cool part is, and we'll link to the website below, is Sam, the folks who are mentors, right, are all like 18 to 25-year-old designers, marketers, developers who all shipped awesome stuff and are going to work with these projects, and they're just crypto native, Web3 native folks, and they're no typically when you launch an initiative like this, you're gonna have you try to optimize for famous names or people who have been around the block. The thing about Web3 is, A, there aren't as many because it's just a nascent industry, and 2, the actual people who end up being useful are these community members who go over and above to help these projects. So we'll link to the website below. People should check out the community. We're very excited about this.
Aravind, when you come to India, there's going to be a press conference, and we don't want you to be taken aback by our press. So we're going to try and do a mock press interview with you right now to just prepare you for FTX's launch in India. All right? Your first question, Mr. Aravind. How Indian are you to come to India?
I was born in India. I can speak Malayalam. I come there every 1-2 years. I watch Hindi movies.
You watch Hindi movies? It's over.
He speaks Malayalam and watch Hindi movies.
And watches Hindi movies. You are more Indian than most of us.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of AIB.
All right, there we go.
You are maximum Indian.
Credentials proven.
Yeah.
Just kidding, Arvind. Just kidding. Just wanted to.
I know how to curse in Hindi.
From AIB.
Yeah, from AIB.
Arvind, are you excited about India? When this first came up, saying, okay, we want to do India, what are some of the thoughts that were going on in your head? And what are you excited about?
So I guess I've seen like the great job Sam has done in the US, working with like regulators and building out like the FTX brand in like a regulated and compliant way. And I think that's probably the part I'm like most excited about. I think India's like a huge market and there's like a tremendous opportunity there for Web3. It's also a huge market for like developers. And I guess one sad thing is
Like recently someone asked me where I think like the crypto industry in India is going, and it seems pretty apparent that like the answer is abroad. Like the crypto industry in India is going to Singapore, it's going to Dubai, and that's like quite sad, and that's something I think like we should all like work towards like fixing. And the other thing is like there does not need to be like a war between like the RBI and Indian government and like the crypto community and like builders and stuff. Like I'm quite excited like to like work with like the Indian government and work with like all of these stakeholders, because this is something that is like very good for India. And I think we should all like come together and like figure out how we can do this in like a regulated and compliant way and like actually bring Web3 to India.
So it feels like the regulatory uncertainty is not something that you're scared about. Like, have you thought about how you're going to navigate that?
Yeah, of course. So I think one of the things is that there was a lot of backlash over the 30% taxation and some of the recent stuff that passed by the Indian government in the budget. Whereas I think those are like great steps, because for like the first time, the government is actually acknowledging this industry and like taking steps to move towards regulation. So we're definitely like excited to like, keep working and partnering with the Indian crypto ecosystem or working with the government to like start moving towards a framework where there's more regulatory oversight, investor protection, consumer protection, and like a comprehensive framework for Indian companies so that they don't have to move abroad, they don't have to go to Singapore, they don't have to go to Dubai. They can build out their businesses from India and serve the rest of the world.
One of the things that's exciting, Tanmay, is that FTX's rollout in India is somewhat different from the approach that other exchanges have taken historically, right? I think the fact that y'all are partnering with builders and encouraging an ecosystem of developers as opposed to marketing the product as something where people can go trade tokens back and forth is, I think, a valuable first step in shifting the narrative to what crypto is really about. Because if you look at these taxation rules, they equate crypto with like effectively the same taxation regime as like gambling or betting, right, where you can't offset losses and things like this. And I think that narrative shift will only come when folks like FTX and and some of the other crypto companies take leadership in changing this from just being about trading tokens to actually building new versions of the internet that we didn't have before.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons FTX decided to come to Superteam when we wanted to roll out in India and not like a traditional media agency or running advertisements and stuff. Because for us, what's most important is like crypto as a tool for empowerment and allowing people in India and stuff to like build great products, build great companies, and like that's serving the rest of the world. So yes, super excited for like all the work we're doing with like Superteam.
And Arvind, you've already started seeing some projects, ever since we announced the partnership. Are there any projects that you're already excited about? Anything, any teams that you looked at and thought this was super interesting?
Yeah, definitely. I think in the gaming space, we've seen some like great projects. There are a lot of like great gaming developers in India. Talking to them has been great. There's also been like I guess some like super team native projects which have been like exciting stuff on like decentralized publishing, DAO tooling. So yeah, lots of great projects. I don't want to like spoil any of the announcements coming up on like projects we're backing, but yeah, definitely a lot of great stuff on the pipeline.
Arvind, I wanted to ask you something for, this is for me personally because I've used FTX. It's going to be probably the only exchange, first of all, with SPL support once you launch here. I just want to know when are you going to launch? Is there any alpha you can give folks at home? Any details of when the product is actually going to launch?
On the venture side, our partnership with like Superteam, I think, should have launched by the time this podcast is out. And then outside of that, we also have INR on ramps, which I'm hoping also should have launched by the time this podcast is out, because both are like coming up in the upcoming days. And in terms of alpha, nothing other than just get long crypto.
Are there any open roles at FTX in the broader APAC region that we can direct our community to?
Yeah, definitely. So as we grow out our like presence in like South Asia and Southeast Asia, and we definitely be like open to like many roles. If there are like people who are like excited to join FTX, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. My DMs are open.
Okay, don't just blindly DM Arvind. What we'll do is we'll connect off call and we'll put out some job listings, official job listings that maybe you can apply to via the Super Team job board. Otherwise, it's just going to be a bunch of people saying, "Hey, we want to work." I can make memes, and it's going to be full of
Yeah.
full in your inbox. So, Arvind, we spoke to Sam about why India is important. I want to know that when India was being discussed, like, did you convince Sam to come to India? Like, what was that like? How did you approach that conversation?
Yeah, sure. So I think a lot of Sam's like mind space has been like taken up by the US, and that's been like quite inspiring to see. Not just on like growing up the exchange, but I think like Sam has really like shaped the future of like cryptocurrency in like the Western world. And that's definitely something that like motivated me to like want to do something similar in India. Speaking to like Indian founders who are like moving abroad, moving to Dubai, Singapore and stuff. I guess yeah, I felt like this was like a significant cost to the Indian crypto ecosystem. So yeah, approached Sam, said, "Hey, this is something I'm like quite excited about. What do you think?" And I guess the great thing about like Sam is that he always encourages people to do stuff that they're excited about. So I guess the fact that I was like excited and really want to do this was like enough for him to be like, "Yeah, you should do this."
What do you think is the best part of working with Sam, and
The worst part,
the most difficult thing about working with with Sam?
I guess the best part is like anytime I'm like stuck with like something and I'm not sure what like the right answer is or what like the right thing to do is. Conversations with like Sam, people like Caroline from Alameda, all of those are like real eye openers because I guess they're just like great thinkers and decision makers. I almost feel like I have like the resources, like the whole world's resources at my hands because I can just ask these two people or like a couple of other people their opinions. I think the worst part about like working with Sam is that Sam is becoming like increasingly famous in not just the crypto space but outside of that too. So I guess the access to Sam is slowly like dying away. That's probably like the worst thing right now, where like I get like less Sam time to like ask my stupid questions or like ask his like thoughts on like random shit. So
All right, and with that, we come to the final section, which is sort of a rapid fire called WTF SBF. Tanmay, do you want to explain the meme, and then we can get into it?
Oh, this dude is from. He's one of the judges on Shark Tank India. He's kind of like the Simon Cowell on the panel who just cuts through all the bullshit. It's like what this phrase basically says: "What the fuck are you doing?"
All right, Sam. You made an announcement that you hired a head of luxury at FTX, and this was the cover picture. We think we know why. We have a guess, but we want you to first explain the announcement, why you're excited, and why are you wearing this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to break into the luxury space, and I think it's not been a space where historically there's been a lot of work with Web3, but I think that means there's a lot of fertile territory. It certainly isn't a space that I'm an expert in, and so it certainly is going to take someone who's not me to run it, which is why Lauren is there. And I think that also gets to to that picture. I think in the end, what's important to me is being authentic, and I sure as hell wasn't putting on a suit for that.
You appeared in the US Congress for a hearing. Would love to hear about your experience doing that. You also had a lot of comments from social media about how your shoelaces were sort of tied. We'd love to hear more about how that went. And
I mean, overall went quite well. That was the House Financial Services hearing, and I had a good time. I thought it was really productive. I think the questions were helpful. I think people were really interested in engaging. And in general, there's just been a lot of, I think, positive movement in DC towards, establishing a sort of like comprehensive and coherent and robust framework for digital assets. So overall, I thought it was pretty good. I was a little worried going in that there was going to be a lot of sort of gotcha questions and sort of like acrimonious encounters, but there really weren't as many as I sort of was worried there would be. I was very pleasantly surprised. And yeah, I guess as you can sort of see from that screen, I bought those shoes for the hearings. I had to, and I guess I didn't notice that they didn't come normally tied.
All right, Sam. You obviously announced the FTX sponsorship, and then Gainsey keeps trolling you on Twitter. We know this is not true, so this is your moment to clarify, because we know that these seats are always full. Talk to us a little bit more about the partnership, what you think, and is that strategy going to expand to India, maybe some cricket stadiums?
I think it might. There is a partnership we have with with a cricket league, and so we'll see what happens there. But those are, I think, it's our first big endorsement deal. It's FTX Arena in Miami. I think on the right there, those are not our seats. That's where Gainsey thought maybe our seats were. It turns out those are someone else's empty seats. Our seats, I think you just see them a little bit off to the left of those, which is where our seats are due to fleet build.
Okay, so this is another thing that we deal with here, right? Which on Twitter you see a lot of this stuff. Which we love the Solana ecosystem. We love the fact that there's a centralized bridge that most people in the Solana ecosystem can use. At the same time, a lot of the Solana ecosystem folks get trolled because there's like VCs involved or there's pump and dump stuff involved. How do you think about this? And do you think we're going to progress towards fairer launches in the future, or how do you think capital formation evolves?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And I mean, I certainly think that like in every ecosystem, including this one, there are a fair share of crap projects that come out. But I think there's also a lot of really cool projects that do as well. I think when you talk about sort of the capital side, I think a lot of what you have to ask is like, well, what is going into the product, right? And if the product is just emergent from the community, then I think it makes a lot of sense to have a launch that is just distributed to the community. I think if on the other hand you have a project that was a whole lot of new work, built out by a team, then it makes a lot more sense for there to be, other funding sources for it. So I think like it really does depend on what the nature of the project is.
Let's move to something you did that was really cool about a couple of days ago. Thought this was hilarious. Let's first play the video.
Okay, so it's kinda dumb, but I do think that words per minute that I type it is significantly correlated with my productivity for a day.
Sam, if I can type more than 100 words per minute, will you buy me a Tesla?
Yes.
All right, what happened here, Sam?
I guess what would start off is I sort of realized that like my energy level is correlated both with my productivity and with my typing speed. And so like days on which I type faster are days which I have more energy, and those are days that I get more done on. I asked if I get him a Tesla if he typed to 100 words per minute. And so he I don't know, some back and forth. He tried a few times. He didn't get there on the first try, but ultimately he did.
That's a pretty expensive tweet.
Yep.
All right, Sam, we could not ask you about this infamous tweet. So you made the tweet. Everybody knows about the tweet. We're not going to explain it. And on the left-hand side, I put that up there because we realized that, okay, everybody thinks we're in a bear market and we're going to goblin town. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to tell us if you think we're in a bear market. And the more interesting question is, you see, we don't have a design team, but we kind of very intricately made the date on the tweet 10 January.
Yeah, no, I did notice that.
Right? Like, you're welcome. If you had to write the same tweet again, what would you fill in the blanks?
Yeah, I don't think we're really in a bear market. I think we're in danger of being in a bear market, but I think at least in crypto, we've sort of pulled out of that a bit. It would be, I think equities have also recovered some. I do think that certainly for equities, we were in a lot of danger of becoming in a bear market. Maybe I'll say this without naming specifics. There are a lot of companies that have gone down a lot, over the last 6 months, and in price. And I think what I'd say is like, I think there's opportunities with a lot of them, but I think that among other things, like we're just seeing sort of a different. We saw a very particular market environment over the last couple of years where like loss-making companies were all the rage. And we might be transitioning a little bit away from that standard. And I think it's going to take some rethinking about how to build a successful desired company in 2022. But I think with that, there could be, real upside.
Do you mind double clicking on that? What does it mean? Profit making, not specifically on which companies or anything, just on a strategic side, what should founders rethink there?
So I think that like, there's sort of like two ways you can try and like see a business. One is like, growing the equity value, the enterprise value, and the other is like, I don't know, long-term net profit. And the core thing is like the second leads to the first. The first doesn't necessarily lead to the second. So I think like the second is like the more core one. And we're in a market that was very forgiving of companies that had no pathway towards profitability ever. And now it's less so. And so I think companies that do have a real pathway to profitability but hadn't sort of been bothering to get there, it might be sort of incumbent upon them to get there quicker rather than slower, especially given that I think funding might be a little harder for them to get now.
Do you think we over-financialized tech in a way that, all these growth stocks that just were looking for exits?
Not necessarily. I think so. I think it can make sense in some cases, right? It lets you be a long-term thinker as a company. I think what we did is we lost sight of what we were optimizing for in the end, right? It'd be one thing if it was financializing tech that would eventually be extremely profitable, but needed a few years to get there. But I think that we're sort of in an environment which is like any company was assumed to ultimately be extremely profitable.
Sam, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for taking the time out. We hope your presence in India goes well, and then we'll hopefully see you soon again, and maybe play chess together one day. Yeah.
Anytime.
See you.